Shalom, everyone. My name is Elliot Salo Schoenberg. I'm the International Director of Placement for the Rabbinical Assembly. Eid Ratzon was a program that we introduced in 1993. In our work in placement, we became clear to us that finding the proper place of employment, the appropriate place that fit for us, was only 50% of our task as rabbis. The other 50% was integrating into the new place of employment. So we created a program called Eid Ratzon. It's based on the teachings of William Bridges. This series of videos is called Eid Ratzon Katan, and it's a snapshot of some of the essential points that William Bridges makes. William Bridges discusses that there are three distinct zones, three distinct phases to transition. Obviously, there is the leaving, the endings. And then there is the new beginning. What do we do when we first get there? But there is a third section called the neutral zone. That's the one in between. In terms of the literature, in terms of our understanding, and in terms of intentionality, it's the one that gets the least attention. Today, we will discuss the middle zone, the neutral zone. What is it? How would you define it? The neutral zone is the in-between having had a position, knowing where we're coming from, and not yet knowing where we are going and what that will be like. We are now in the middle, the in-between time. It's described as a metaphor as the Bamidbar, being in the wilderness. We know we've left Egypt. We've not yet gotten to the Holy Land. We are wandering in the desert. It's like quicksand. It can be a sticky kind of place. Other kinds of things happen. One of the analogies that I enjoy the most is it's like an acrobat on a trapeze in the circus. Lets go of the trapeze on one side, is doing a flip in the air, not yet grabbed hold of the next side of the trapeze, and looks down. What is that experience like of being in the middle, of being in between? That's the neutral zone. So how would you characterize the neutral zone? What is it like? What does it feel like to be in the middle? So if you imagine that there is an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is what people see as productive, accomplishments, what you're doing. What's below the waterline, beneath the triangle, the bottom of the iceberg, is the internal work. It's what people don't see. This is not a time of accomplishment. This is a time of internal work. People don't see it. So people would characterize you as being unproductive. In the neutral zone, very much like when the Israelites were in the wilderness, it's a time when old wounds emerge. It's a time when people raise their complaints. It's a time when people go back to fight battles that were fought in the old days. If you look at the metaphor, the golden calf makes great sense. We know where we're coming from, Egypt. We know where we're going, the Holy Land. We're not there yet. And people get antsy, so people complain. So this is a time when old wounds emerge and we think about old battles that we had once fought. The neutral zone, being in the middle, is part of a process that William Bridges describes as being one step after the other. There's the ending, there's the neutral zone, and then there are new beginnings. But it's uncomfortable to be in the middle, just like you're the middle child. Whenever you are in the neutral zone, it's uncomfortable. William Bridges makes the key point that it's natural, that it's expected, it's normal. But it's still uncomfortable. One other characteristic of being in the middle, of being in the neutral zone, is we're disorganized. We're feeling confused. We're feeling strained. We're feeling tired. And it's a good thing to talk about it, but it's also good to realize that we're just not feeling like who we really are. We're in the middle, and we're uncomfortable, tired, and confused. One final characteristic of the neutral zone is even though it appears that we're not accomplishing things, that we're not pushing an agenda forward, that things are not being done, activities don't look like they're happening, very important work is going on. It's internal work. It's psychological work. We are realigning our agenda. We are realigning our identity. We're getting our act together. It takes time. It's not easy. It's normal. And it is a great accomplishment. It's just not easy to see. So you're in the neutral zone. It's inevitable that we'll pass through this. Sometimes we want to get through it quickly. What are the best ways to manage being in this uncomfortable, chaotic spot called the neutral zone? First, I would suggest is name it. Realize that you're in the neutral zone. Use that name and tell people exactly what's going on. Surface it. Let people be aware that you're in the middle of this psychological process. Name it. Surface it. Another technique to help you manage the neutral zone is to explain it to people. Now that you've mentioned it and named it and surfaced it, explain it to them. Take them through the process. It's a normal process. They won't understand it at first. They may not be familiar with it, but explain it to them so they'll be able to empathize with you about what you're going through. Another technique for managing the neutral zone is to reframe it. Reframe it in positive terms. Say to yourself, what's the advantage of being in the middle? So if you were a middle child, what's the advantage of being in the middle? Well, if your older brother picked on you, advantage of being in the middle is you picked on your younger brother. If you're a middle-sized company, what's the advantage of being in the middle? The literature says you've got enough capital to be able to be productive, yet because you're smaller than a huge corporation, you're more nimble. You can make changes that are quicker. You'll be able to be more flexible. So now that you're in the neutral zone, the middle zone, how would you frame it in a positive way? What's the advantage to you to be there right now? One way to make sure that you go through the neutral zone with love and care is to seek out people. A tip to manage the neutral zone is don't do it alone. Do it in the support of other people. Let them know what's happening. Chat it up with them. And just you want them to be around you to be empathetic. You don't have to do it alone, or you don't have to be alone at all times with it. Seek support groups. If this was philosophy, we'd need to be consistent here. But I just said that you should seek other people and spend time with them. Another way, total contradiction, to go through the neutral zone is to be alone. Make sure you have enough time that you spend alone with yourself, journaling, reflecting, just going for a walk, because it's a time to take stock. It's a time to evaluate where you've been and where you'd like to go. So, be alone. A very important strategy for this in-between time, in terms of being able to manage it, is self-care. We've mentioned this before in terms of new beginnings. We talked about it in terms of ending, and it's certainly true here. Taking care of yourself, looking out for yourself, remains key. However it is that you take care of yourself, meditating, running, going to the gym, like my friend who likes to bicycle, whatever it is that you do to take care of yourself, do more of it now while you're in the neutral zone. When you're in the neutral zone and you're doing the internal work, the productive internal work, it's not a time for the big projects. It's not a time for the accomplishments. Instead, focus on the day-to-day activities. Small wins, small accomplishments. Do the daily tasks, not the big picture. And the final suggestion that we have to manage the neutral zone is picture how it will all end. What's at the end? If we go back to the metaphor of the wilderness, what were the ancient Israelites thinking about? They were thinking about getting into the Holy Land, and before that, receiving God's Torah. They were excited. They were pushing for it. Moses was be able to talk about what was coming. So too with us. As we're working our way through the neutral zone, think, what's the end game? What will it look like when we get to the end? This is Eit Ratzon Katan, a series of videos describing the segments of transition from new beginnings, from endings, and now today, the neutral zone. Thank you for joining us.